Hey guys, welcome back. I came right back like I said I was. So I just finished doing an update on my experience with getting the COVID-19 vaccine. You guys can watch that at your leisure. I love to burn. Ooh, that was not a fucking good idea, yo. So I had some remnants of my previous incense that I burned in my last video. Alright, and I'm putting out the flame for this one. And I blew it up. Fucking ashes dispersed. But anyway, I like to burn incense because for me it's aromatherapy and also it's a way to ground. So I like to ground. Grounding is really important, but so this video, where do I begin? Okay. I was inspired to do this video topic recently because I noticed, I like to observe, right? I study behavior. I like to observe other people and myself, right? And so I'm like, you know what? Bingo. I'm going to talk about borderline personality disorder, right? So first I have to say, God damn, I'm looking back at time and the many years it's been since I first entered the field of psychology. Damn. Time goes by fast, yo. So I graduated high school in 2002. Same year I entered college, right? My initial major was computer science. And I was fascinated by like learning about programming, all of that. Took a few programming classes. But I realized like, yo, this shit is so mundane. It's boring, right? And I can't do this, right? I like science, but I don't think I like that kind of science in a way, right? Just sitting behind a computer and learning like programs and things like that. So I decided to switch it over to psychology, right? And I fell in love with it. And I know it's not just me, right? Because I know a lot of other psych majors can relate to this experience where when we first take our first psychopathology class and we're learning about the mental health disorders, right? The classifications, the criteria, and you're reading it and you're like, damn, that sounds like me. Like, yo, I came across so many fucking disorders in the DSM that I'm like, damn, that shit sounds like me. By the way, I do have my little pocketbook here, pocket manual, shall I say, handy. We're going to talk about the criteria, the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders. This is the DSM. It's our official Bible here that we use to make diagnosis. It has criteria, right? It has codes. That's the big important part of the book, is that it has codes that we use to diagnose and to get insurance reimbursement. But I remember, and I actually started my training in psychology. Like I said, this was many years ago. It will be like, yo, next year, 2022 will be fucking 20 years. God damn, 20 fucking years, yo. I swear I don't feel that old. I don't. I'm 38 years old, though. Yeah, so I came in and studying psychology on the DSM-4 TR, right? This is a DSM-5 here that I have a copy of. This is the desk reference, or the little pocket manual book. And like I said, remember, yo, like reading so many fucking disorders, I'm like, damn, that shit sounds like me. Especially with the personality disorders. Damn, that sounds like me, damn. And I know I'm not alone with this because I experienced this with my classmates too. Like at the different level, at many different levels, at the undergraduate level, master's level, and doctoral level, right? Hi, Denise. So welcome to the video. Feel free to chime in. Like I like to make my videos interactive, but I sometimes realize also like the advantages, disadvantages of being interactive, right? The obvious would be being interactive, but the disadvantage would be like, yo, I get distracted, and I know I have like things I need to talk about, I want to address, and I feel like, damn, if I make it interactive, I'm gonna fucking lose my train of thought. I do that anyway though, so I'm not here to try to blame y'all. Like I do that anyway, I lose my train of thought. But I don't lose my train of thought. It's just like I have, the way my mind works, I have so many different thoughts, right? Obviously, like I have a very expansive mind. And a lot of different thoughts are connected to other different thoughts, right? And I like to share these connections that are popping up in my mind. But anyway, yeah, and it was just like yeah, having those experiences in like classes and like reading like the criterion, but like, damn. So you end up diagnosing yourself. You're like, damn, that sounds like me. I swear that fucking sounds like me, yo. And when I say it sounds like me, like it was a part when I got to the personality disorders. And by the way, borderline personality disorder is one of the disorders here. It's a personality disorder, clearly. Characterized by this fear, right? This fear of abandonment in, relationships. This instability in relationships, specifically romantic relationships. There's a lot, I feel like there's a lot of symptoms, right? Emptiness, irritability, anxiety, anger. Let's dive into it. Let's read from the DSM. So with the DSM, of course, they're like cluster A, cluster B, cluster C. And it's funny because when you talk to other like psychologists, mental health professionals, right? No one really wants to work with people with personality disorders, especially fucking borderline, yo. I find that interesting though. Having worked in the field of mental health for many, many years, I find it interesting, right, that people and of course with the clusters, right, so cluster A personality is a paranoid and schizotypal. Cluster B, antisocial, borderline personality disorder, histrionic, narcissistic personality disorder. A lot of people like to diagnose other people with narcissism, right? Especially well-known public figures. Trump, Dr. Umar, let me stop. Cluster C, avoidant personality disorder, dependent personality disorder, obsessive compulsive personality disorder. So it's the cluster B. It's the cluster B that people are like, a lot of people don't want to deal with that, right? Because that's where narcissism, the histrionics, and the borderline, the BPDs live here in the cluster B. Like I said, when I first got my hands, on the DSM many, many years ago, I'm like, damn, reading the criteria, like, wait, what? Clairvoyance, telepathy, sixth sense, what? Paranoid, what? Is that me? Now I like to have fun, yo. Like, even when I was just having a meeting with a psychologist, right, who works for the state here in New York, I shared, like, one of my strengths is just using humor. Like, it's good to laugh, right? Like, sometimes we're so uptight with life and taking shit so serious. We just forget to just be and exist and have fun. And with that, I, especially working in mental health, like, yo, you gotta just, you gotta have balance. You can't be so tense, so tight, so uptight about this stuff, right? You have to fucking have a way to just relieve yourself. And I think also because there's so much stigma attached to mental illness. I don't like to say mental, I like to say mental health or mental wealth, right? But there's so much stigma attached to what I'm holding here. You know what I'm saying? that people can be living with many different disorders here, but they won't get treatment. They don't even know that they have these issues, number one. So, of course, they don't get treatment. And it negatively impacts their relationships. That's like a fucking telltale sign right there that a person has a psychological disorder, right? Because it shows up in different areas of their life, including personal, professional, leisure, relationships and work, right? It shows up in those areas, and it's like, yeah, something is there. But I think it also has to do with the way society responds, like how we handle our own condition, right? I like to look at, like, when you talk about like mental illness and these disorders, I like to look at it just as a human condition, right? Like, it's how we respond to life. So when you see people who have schizophrenia, you see people who have dissociative identity disorder. I think it used to be called like multiple personality disorder, right? You see people who have depression, anxiety, bipolar, borderline personality disorder, narcissism. It's just it's a response. Many of this is just a response to life events, right? It's the human condition. So I'm going to read the symptoms, right? The criteria that goes into borderline personality disorder. This is just one. This is just one disorder, right? But I like to take the same approach in discussing other disorders, so you can kind of take the same approach too, right? It's just these are symptoms. These are manifestations of the way we respond. Any person probably will respond the same way. So it's not to point fingers and cast judgment at anyone. I don't like that. I think that given the same circumstances, if you put a person in the same circumstances, obviously with the same genetic makeup, because there are many different factors that go into how a person responds to life events, right? Trauma. We can two people can experience the same traumatic event, but doesn't mean that they will respond the exact same way, right? Even if you look at there have been twin studies too, as it relates to mental illness. So of course, factors such as like coping skills, such as the way we perceive events that happen in our life, that are obviously our own perception of what's happening, what we're experiencing, plays a role in this, right? But let's just go ahead and dive into this here. So, F60.3. Borderline personality disorder. Like I said, like, people, and feel free if you can relate to this topic and you know someone who has been diagnosed with BPD. I know it's so much stigma, so that's the thing. It's just the label, right? So if we can talk about this just in terms of like criteria, like, oh, you can relate, right? A lot of people can relate more to the criteria, the symptoms, than they will be willing to admit that they relate to a label. Because, okay, once you get the label, it's like, oh, a death sentence, right? It's like, stay away. Red flag, like, no, right? But when you just read, like, take away the labels and you just, like, read the symptoms or the criteria, you're like, you can relate to a lot of this shit. A lot of us can. It's just being human. I am really going to dive into this, right? I don't know how long this video is going to be, but I'm definitely going to dive into this. So here we go. A pervasive pattern of instability of interpersonal relationships, self-image, and affects, and marked impulsivity. Like, what does that mean, right? Beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts, as indicated by 5 or more of the following. Now, it's interesting how they say beginning early adulthood, because I'm going to talk about like the causes, right? My conceptualization of this disorder. or manifestation of the human condition, right? Um, it's interesting how they say, like, the onset being early adulthood, right? Because that's when you enter into romantic relationships. So that's how you know. It's like that's a marker for knowing if something is going wrong, right? But within the field of psychology, of course, there are many different disciplines, many different clinical approaches to understanding and treating these conditions, right? I identify myself more with the psychoanalytic, psychodynamic school of thought. Now, going back to my training, right, in a PhD program, my doctoral training, I had a professor, right, who taught psychoanalytic, psychodynamic theory, which is an approach. It's a theory, but it's also a clinical approach to treatment, right? And it basically, and a lot of you guys probably are familiar with like the likes of Freud, who kind of conceptualized behavior stemming from like early childhood experiences, right? In terms of our development and these our attachments that we form, right? Different experiences that we have as a child being the kind of like the framework, the precipitating factor for how we are as adults, how we relate to other people as adults. And oftentimes how we relate to people as adults comes from like a deficit, let's say, in childhood, right? So psychoanalytic theory is kind of like the basis for how many psychologists understand behavior. They will tie it back to childhood, right? And so when we look at, I'm going to read the symptoms, these criteria. The first, let me continue. It says, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts as indicated by 5. So you have to have minimum 5, but we can talk about like diagnosis, right, within the field of mental health. I'm not really going to go into that, like in terms of the criteria and all of that, and insurance reimbursement. That's a whole nother topic. Y'all see how my mind works, though. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic. So these are the criteria. I think there are how many? 9. It's funny because it's 9. It seems like to be the magical number, 9 or 11. But anyway, at least 5 of the 9, right? The first being frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. Now, within the school of thought, within psychodynamic school of thought, right? One would say that this fear of abandonment perhaps stems from early childhood. So what happened in a person's early childhood that contributed to this fear of abandonment? Why? Let's do some critical thinking here, right? Why would a person fear abandonment, right? And psychoanalytic people, psychoanalysts, will say, oh, it's something relating to a person's early childhood experiences. Perhaps they grew up in foster care. Now, I can say, one of my very first jobs, right, post bachelor's, when I was 22 years old, right? 22 years old. This is back in 2006. Was working at a residential facility, residential treatment facility, where that housed children ages 5 to like 17 who were wards of the state of Florida. Many of them didn't have any connection to their biological family, right? Being in foster care and being passed from one place to the next. So it wasn't uncommon to see the borderline traits, right? Like typically borderline personality isn't just like diagnosed, as most personalities aren't really diagnosed like in childhood. That's a good thing though, right? Because you don't want to just slap a personality disorder label on someone that young, considering, right? Though they suggest, like research says that, okay, you can tell a person's personality early on, right? Like the first 5 years of life is kind of what shapes a person's personality, and who that person is. Let's say when they're 6 or 7 years old, is kind of like who they're going to be. That's the kind of premise for the theory within personality. But they don't typically diagnose personality disorders that young, right? So when you look at a lot of these personality disorders, you'll see like, onset, early adulthood, which makes sense, right? But that's not to say that they don't have provisional diagnoses put down, like in their charts, right, of a certain, disorder, personality disorder, right? But I just think that that's interesting. And like I said, I have a professor in my doctoral program where I got into a debate. I was like one of those students where, like, not that, I just like to argue, right? Though I don't like to argue, but I like to present my perspective. And if I have a different way of saying something, like, I'm going to express that. Like, you will know, right? And so I had that issue. I want to say it wasn't really an issue, though. It was just like a little thing that happened in my class. But I'm glad that my professor, he was kind of receptive, but he stood firm, right? And as most true blue psychoanalysts will stand firm on their belief that, okay, no, all behavior can be explained by the first 5 years of life. And I'm just like, nah. Granted, I think that theory has a lot of weight. Don't get me wrong. I think it holds a lot of weight. And feel free to chime in. I'm pretty sure by now you have some thoughts. Denise, feel free to chime in. I'm pretty sure you have some thoughts by now, considering how much has been said. But maybe you're just, wanting to observe. That's fine too. No pressure. But I said to my professor, I'm like, because I'm thinking about my own life, right? It's like the thing with psychology, as you're studying it, right? In academia, you kind of like relate a lot of things you learn to like your own life. So I'm just like checking these theories against my own experiences, right? And I'm just like, but if I grew up in a stable house where I had secure attachment with my parents, how do you explain certain things that are manifested in my life as an adult if I had a secure base as a child, right? So I'm letting him know, like, listen, all behavior can't necessarily be explained, or how we respond, let's say, in our adult environment, in our adult life. You can't just say, okay, it's linked back to the first 5 years. What about the other years after that, right? That was my question to my professor. And I asked this like during class. I didn't like wait. You know how some students like wait after class and they go to the professor and have these one-on-one conversations with the professor, because they have like their wheels are turned, like they're turning, right? They're thinking. That's good. You're supposed to think as a fucking college student. So don't believe the fucking bullshit people say, like, oh, college students they're not thinkers and they're just like being programmed and taking information. Like, no, real college, how it's supposed to be done. You think, you ask questions, you challenge. And I did that. I took advantage of that opportunity, and I would do it like right on the spot. I'm not like waiting to after class. I got other shit to do. I do it right on the spot. And I think what happened, because I'm glad that he wasn't like egotistical, because you'll have some professors, they are like, even in psychology, very egotistical. And what's up, Joshua? You seem like you've been here before. They are egotistical, and they don't like to be challenged. I mean, it's kind of like a human condition, though, right? It's like a human thing. Like, who likes to be like, especially if you deem yourself as like knowledgeable, incredible, right? And he has many years. He has his own private practice and everything. He teaches, that's one thing that he does, but he also has his own private practice in Beverly Hills, because I went to school, did my doctorate out in Los Angeles, right? So he's like, he has like you have this whole like makeup, right? This whole concept of who you are, and to be challenged by a student in front of other people, I know that can feel a little bit threatening, right? So this is why I sometimes don't mind when no one is watching during my live, because I get distracted. And if I get distracted, then I have to sometimes, like, I have to silence people. I have to block them, right? Now let me see. Do I have the ability to swipe? Oh, I do have the ability to swipe to turn off my comments, but I don't want other people who are watching to be distracted. So hold your question. I will come back to your question, but this video is very focused, right? I record my videos live on Facebook. Why? I mean, I could do it just like a pre-recorded video, like on my phone, and then upload to YouTube, but I prefer to use Facebook because it has unlimited space. My phone does not have unlimited space. So that's the reason why I do my videos live recorded on Facebook. And sometimes I like to do the interactive thing, right? You guys can interact. But this is kind of not really that type of video unless it's related to what I just said. So let's stay focused here, okay? So yeah, I asked my professor this, and he was like, we were kind of challenging, like kind of going back and forth, right? Because I know that there are experiences that people have after the first 5 years of their life, right? It could be year 7, year 10, year 12, especially during the teenage years, right? The adolescent years and young adult, especially the young adult, because I'm thinking about my own life, especially young adult years, right? That can set the course for how they relate to other people, how they show up in the world, basically, and how they relate to other people. And we're talking about borderline personality disorder, right? And one of the characteristics being this fear of abandonment. And so one way to conceptualize it would say, you can tie it back to a person's, first 5 years. And I was giving an example of how I work with children who are wards of the state of Florida, foster care. It makes, when you think about it, it makes sense, right? Like, as an adult, why would they have this fear of abandonment? Why would they make frantic efforts to try to avoid being abandoned by someone, by a partner that they are dating? Why? Right? Because this is a learned response. This is learned behavior that has been implanted within them at a very young age. It's like a automatic response related to not only their psychology, but their neurology, the way that their brain works. We're talking about parasympathetic nervous system response, right? So when we look at psychology, like, we study things in psychology, right? And people like to kind of look at psychology like as this a vacuum, right? And their theories relating to psychology, but there's a lot of overlap. That's why when you actually work in psychology as a psychologist, you see that your work is interdisciplinary, right? It's kind of hard to just work independently as a psychologist, right? That's why the psychologists work in hospitals around, medical doctors, neuropsychologists. We work together because there are specializations, right, within different disciplines that require more tuned, fine focus, right, on certain things to be able to understand. And so when you look at this fear of abandonment as on a neurological level, right, something that has the way their brain has been rewired at a very early age. Let's say for children who grew up in foster care, didn't have that secure base internalized within them, planted within them at a very young age, didn't receive the consistent nurturing that we should receive as children growing up. See, sometimes we don't really pay attention to how important that is because we're caught up in the matrix of living in America, right? And everybody chasing the bag. The way the family structure is set up here in America is different, right? Times have changed, right? Things have evolved or devolved, one can say, where women, mothers, are working. They're not at home with their children, right? Being able to spend those intimate moments with them, because that is very vital. It's very important, right? People don't understand how important it is, though, unless you know this yourself, right? You may understand it, let's say, on a practical level, like, okay, you got to be there with your child, but do you really understand the nuances of what it means, how important it is to really be there and to be responsive to your child, and how you respond, the way in which you respond to your child when they are dependent upon you. They're solely dependent upon you at that very young age, right? For nurturing, for their survival. When they cry, when they need milk, how do you respond to the cries? How soon do you respond to the cries? Or do you not respond, right? That is going to shape who they are developmentally. This is tapping into developmental psychology, right? But when you're so caught up with work, 9 to 5, and gotta pay the bills, you get in the bag, that kind of gets pushed under the rug. Looking at children who grew up in foster care, you can see the connection between the inconsistency and stability, right? There's no freaking stability. They're here, they're there. I mean, unless they found a good home. Like some children, like Keisha Cole. I don't know if you guys know, y'all should probably know her, right? She's an R&B artist. She did lose her mother, I think, this year. Her mother fought a long battle with drugs, with addiction, and she passed away, I think, this year. Her mom didn't raise her, though. Keisha Cole was raised by an adopted family. That's kind of a different situation. But for children who aren't that lucky, a lot of children aren't that lucky to like be adopted and have this stability and love, consistent love, of a warm household and family, right? They didn't have that, so they go to one foster family. And foster care is temporary, right? Oftentimes it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Why? Because like people get into foster care for the wrong reasons. They want the money. All right, and they say they care about children, but they really don't. They're not equipped. They're not equipped to deal with the behaviors that they see within these children. Right? Because what kind of behaviors do you think you're going to see in a child who has been thrown away? Like I work with these children. This is like I said, my very first stepping into the field job when I was 22 years old, back in Jacksonville, Florida. I can give you an example. One of the kids, like his mother left him in the dumpster. Left his ass in the dumpster. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is all part of his record. You know, that's like one of the first things you do. You step on the unit, you start working, you're reading their files, and some got thick ass histories, thick files, right? And you're just reading it, and it's just like, For me, though, I like to take a different approach. So for me, that's not like my go-to. They tell you, like in orientation and training, read their file. That's important, right? You want to know like what you're dealing with. But for me, I like to do it the other way around, where I like to get to know my patients first, my client, work with them first, like get to know them, build a relationship with them, and then okay, if it's something I need to know, then I can reference their file, right? It matters that way. And so this kid, he's an adult now. He's an adult. But I think it's just, it's unfortunate, having that type of early childhood experience. And being passed from one foster home to the next because, they're going to have, be emotionally reactive, aggressive. They have anger, right? Much of these symptoms are here, right? Not to say that, they are they have a predisposition for a borderline personality disorder, which a lot of them do, but they're not diagnosed. They didn't carry that diagnosis necessarily. Though I think one kid did. Though I think he was 16. I think when I was working with him, and I think they tried to give him that like as a kind of preliminary diagnosis, or provisional diagnosis. But yeah, it's unfortunate. So one can understand it from that perspective, but where I was getting at was in turn like the kind of discussion I had with my professor, how I think some behaviors are learned. Some behaviors stem from experiences that a person goes through in their teenage years and early adult years, right? Okay, so the first symptom here: frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined. It doesn't really matter if it's real or imagined. It's the fact that they fear abandonment, right? What could make a person, and I have to say this, so borderline personality disorder is common. It's common enough that it's an issue here in America. I think they say with roughly 3 million cases diagnosed every year. Who do you think, which gender do you think borderline personality disorder is more prevalent? Men or women? For you guys watching, feel free. Men or women? It's actually women, right? 75% of the cases, borderline personality disorder, are women. Now let's think. Think about this, right? We put our thinking caps on. 75% of the cases are women. Not to say men don't experience it, because obviously they do, and they probably experience it, who knows, equally, right? But I think something to be said about our culture here in America, because making sense, right, of the statistic, as it relates to the symptoms here. Why do a lot of women experience these issues here, right? You think about the culture of America here, and you're like, it kind of makes sense. You know, like growing up, right, in school, the way that the way that boys and girls are socialized is different in America, right? And it's probably consistent in other countries too. But here in America, like, you know, boys obviously are socialized to be tough and play with trucks, and girls are socialized at a very young age to be nurturers, to be mommies, basically, right? Playing with dolls and feeding their dolls and having doll houses and all this stuff, like at a very early age, and having like these kitchens, like these little, you know, toy kitchens, and like socialized to cook and all this, socialized to prepare yourself for marriage, and boys aren't really socialized to be prepared for marriage necessarily. I mean, they're socialized to you know, be firemen and policemen and play with trucks and things like that, because that's kind of priming them for these roles that you see in blue collar workers, right? But boys aren't really primed, aren't socialized to look towards marriage. And so when you look at the experiences of children in junior high school and high school, the differences between boys and girls, especially in the time of, you know, adolescent puberty, boys get reinforced for having sex. Girls don't, though. Boys get reinforced within the black culture, right? They get praise. When a boy has sex, it's like, oh, you hit it, you smash. Did you smash? It's like, oh, the thing, did you smash? You hit, oh, you hit it, high five, right? in the white community. Did you bone? Did you score? Oh, you scored. They get reinforced. Girls get shamed. So if you're going to comment and say you disagree, I don't think that is purposeful. I don't think that is meaningful to just say you disagree. But make a valid point. Like, substantiate your point, right? Because one thing I don't like or tolerate is just people like trolling. People getting on a person's video just to, like, I like to have intellectual conversations. But if you, like, we don't have to agree on everything. But don't, like, trolls typically get on people's and they're like, oh, you're wrong, right? But they don't have anything more to add to the conversation other than saying you're wrong. If that's all you have to add, because you just want to get attention, you know, you just want to get attention, then I think that's why I think I'm going to have to, like, block you for a second, because I don't like that. I feel like it takes away from the discussion here. You had your chance though to add to the discussion, but you chose not to add meaningfully to the discussion, but you chose not to. So boys are socialized differently, and with that, it's gonna set the trajectory for how they interact with women as they get older. It's kind of unfortunate. It's kind of unfair though, right? Because it takes two to have sex. It takes two to enjoy sex, right? Like, why are boys reinforced for having sex and girls are shamed for having sex, right? And this continues, not just like, it continues through, you know, junior high, high school, and then even after. The experience for a lot of women, young adult women, shall I say, is abandonment. We're talking about the symptoms, the criteria for borderline personality disorder, right? And I know the go-to for many psychologists, especially psychoanalytic psychologists, is to kind of attribute things manifest in adults to their upbringing, their childhood, right? Oh, blame the parents, right? And really, it's not about, we're not doing the name blame game and all of that, right? Or for the sake of conversation, it's to kind of, blame their parents, you know. When you see an adult a certain way, just blame their parents. There are many different factors, right? It's the socialization, it's society, it's the media, it's the government, it's religion. Definitely plays an important role in behavior, shaping behavior within society, people within society, right? And everyone, of course, we're all responsible for our own behavior. But when you're talking about at that age, I had to think about this, right? I'm going to set this picture. It's not about agreeing. It's not about right or wrong. I think this is where conversations become stagnant, right? Because people are such in a push to argue a point as opposed to understanding a point. I'm not here to argue. Y'all should know that about me by now. Like, I don't like, it's not about debating or arguing a point as it is about building discussion and understanding. Because there are many different ways to conceptualize an issue. Just as me being able to understand and attribute behavior to the first 5 years, I think it's equally important for people to be able to understand that there are other factors that shape human behavior that extend beyond the first 5 years of life. And that's what we're talking about here. And so women being socialized to look towards getting married. That's just a lot of women. A lot of women have gotten over the bullshit, right? They're like, you know what? I'm over marriage, right? I'm over this fantasy of having my hand asked for in marriage and all that, right? They're over it, but deep down inside, a lot of women still aspire, especially if you're not married, they still aspire to that. And there's this even stigma like attached to single women, right? Women being single. Why are you single? Why are you not married? Like, there's a push for women to get married. There's not really a push for men necessarily to get married, right? But there's a reinforcement, positive reinforcement given to men when they fuck, they bone, right? They score with a woman. It kind of makes them more of a man to have fucked all these different women. How does that play out, though? You think about that dynamic, right? Those two different sides of a woman aspiring and craving marriage and just craving love, and then on the other side, men just getting reinforced and receiving their validation as a man by how many women they can fuck. How does that play out in relationships? Well, it plays out this way. Women entering into relationships with a man, thinking that he's the one. He's the one, you have sex. The man on the other side with this woman is just like, I'm just here to fuck. Right? He got what he wanted. Boom. Women experience this feeling of abandonment. People need to be able to talk about these issues without trying to push it under the rug or argue against it. We're not here to debate. It's not an argument, right? If you have a different way of looking at it, though, feel free to share your comment below. Feel free to share that difference of perspective. You don't have to say you disagree to share it, though. Just share it, right? That's how you build conversation. So I'm just trying to teach you guys basic social skills. If you want to engage in conversation with me. Because there was just someone on my post was like, oh, I disagree. It's just like, people like to say they disagree just for the sake of disagreeing. But anyway, but they're not adding to the discussion. So like I said, I like to engage in conversation. And I'm trying to teach you guys how to do so, because a lot of you guys just don't know. But you see what that kind of dynamic creates, right? So he's like, I scored, right? On to the next one. And now she's feeling abandoned. And then in her pursuit of being chosen by a man, getting married, right? Gaining a sense of acceptance, she goes and into the next one. And you have like the media plays a role into it too, right? I admit I have on my playlist where I have a whole hip hop playlist of songs that I made on YouTube. And y'all know the song with Chris Brown, "These hoes ain't loyal," da da da, right? And how Keisha Cole made with K Michelle, they made their own version of that. And they talk about, on to the next one. And there's so many artists, so many female artists, they have that kind of innuendo in their song, right? In their music, where they're like, on to the next one. This nigga ain't shit, on to the next one, right? And keep going on to the next one. It's just like, nothing wrong with female and sexual liberation. Because y'all know I'm all about that. Like, I make many videos talking about sexuality. And a woman owning her sexuality. But I would be remiss to be a psychologist in the field of mental health and not mention the psychological aspect of this too, right? Because there's a psychological aspect and understanding of everything. And I talk about the intersection of psychology, mental health with alternative sexual lifestyles, even BDSM, right? And so the question is raised, what is the psychological and emotional toll that is being taken on a woman? And it's not just women, right, who suffer from abandonment, right, or being used, feeling like they're being used, right, in relationships, right? You have one intention going in, and an idea and expectation, and it's not being met, right? You're let down, and so forth. Like, men go through the same thing too. But even the statistics show, when we're talking about prevalence of borderline personality disorder, there's a disproportionality, right, in the representation of men to women, right? The numbers are not equal. There's more women diagnosed. Now, I wouldn't say that, maybe it's just women who go and seek help. That's the reason why they're more diagnosed. But I would like to say it has a lot to do with the way we're socialized, the differences in how we're socialized here in American society. And then this woman goes to the next guy. And it's like the same thing, right? And that's what this whole idea, all men are dogs kind of thing. I wouldn't say all, right? It's not that all men, but through experience, women come to learn behavior, that they're kind of the same. And to a point that they are, you know what I'm saying? Same thing with women, right? We're socialized a certain way. It's our socialization that makes us the same as men and women, right? And so we can't pretend like it doesn't impact the person psychologically. No one talks about this though. I'm talking about it, but no one really wants to come forth and be brave enough to talk about, as a woman, how does it feel? How does it affect you psychologically, emotionally, to have sex with the man that you thought was your husband or a potential husband, right? You gave yourself to him. You opened yourself up to him. You listened to the sweet nothings in your ear that he was giving you. And it's not to say, okay, women are the complete victims. Because yes, she opened her legs, right? She did it, right? Everyone should take responsibility, though. And I think it's important, yes, for the women to wake up and realize, okay, well, this is a pattern here. This is a pattern, and this is not the right way to go about getting married. And that's a whole nother discussion too, right? Because that comes up with the whole Steve Harvey thing of wait 90 days. And people say, oh, that don't work. Men even say, oh, well, she wait 90 days. I can just wait 90 days and fuck her and then throw her away, right? Then abandon her after 90 days, right? And then you got women say, all right, well, I'm not going to have sex for a whole year or until I get married, and shit can still go wrong, right? So one can think that they have an approach for how things should be done when it comes to opening a woman's self up sexually to a man that she has feelings for, she's attached to, right? She's developing an attachment to, because that's only natural. If you're with someone, you're going to develop feelings for a person, and those feelings are attached to one's biology, right? Their anatomy. So that's only natural, right? So it's not about victim shaming or blaming or any of that. But it's just pointing out these obvious realities that we are experiencing here in our culture, in our society, right? Now, men, of course, in the kind of argument will say, oh, well, we're biologically made, right, a certain way because we're driven by our biology, because we have all these sperm cells to impregnate and reproduce and multiply. That's the reason why we just have sex, like, indiscriminately, right? But as a rational, thinking, responsible person, you don't just fuck, and not take responsibility, right? And that's where you have, like, all these single baby mamas and all of this. And it creates, like, it creates this whole mesh of issues here, on so many different levels, right? On so many different levels. We're talking about the destruction of the black family. the breakdown of the black, like somebody got to step up and take responsibility, right? And these single parent households and children growing up without, because we're talking about cycles here, right? Cycles recreating themselves. People not taking responsibility as being part of that cycle, unfortunately, right? And then he goes to the next, right? And then another woman becomes his next victim. He know that he just want to fuck, like, but he's portraying himself as a person who, oh, I want a long-term relationship, this is what I want. And being irresponsible, being very immature. Some men may look at this and they laugh. It's just immaturity. At some point, when are you going to mature though? Right? And see that there is something wrong here. There is something wrong. And we're all interconnected. So if a man is relating to a woman this way, and over time, a woman is exposed to these different types of men who give this persona, right, that they are her knight in shining armor, with the idea of marriage in the future, but there's no marriage, right? She feels a sense of letdown and abandonment that has been created, that she's internalized in her psyche. The cause and effect. If you were to Google what are the causes of borderline personality disorder, of course it's not going to say what I'm saying here. Why? Because within research, within science, one can't definitively speak on a cause of something unless there has been an empirically validated research study, right? Controlled research. So these things will have to be measured in a controlled environment. And what we're talking about is not something that you could do in a research study necessarily. You can go and look at it after these things have happened, but you can't go and create these situations, ethically and legally in research where you get men and then have them abandon women purposefully, right? and and look at and try to measure the results of this. So that's the only reason why there hasn't been a definitive cause to be able to explain borderline personality disorder, but you can put two and two together, right? So it's unfortunate, right? Dealing with this, we're talking about, and we're just still on the first point: frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment, and how this really manifests in a person who has experienced abandonment. Like, do you see the connection, right? I just want you guys to see it for yourself, right? A person making frantic efforts, like they're so afraid of being abandoned, to the extent where some people who suffer from borderline personality disorder will abandon other people. And this is where I was inspired to do this video, right? Because like I said at the beginning of this video, how when I first entered the field of psychology, I'm like, you're reading the criteria and you're like, damn, I can relate. Damn, that's me all the fucking way, right? How many of you guys will be honest to admit? A lot of people do. I study people even on social media, right? And reading people's posts. And there's this whole cut-off culture. People brag about, I cut that motherfucker off quick, right? And you have no emotion. You're like, you have apathy, right? You don't care. You don't feel anything. And apathy, by the way, is one of the criteria. I'm not here to diagnose anyone. We're just talking about symptoms, right? And conceptualizing this disorder here. But it's interesting. The cutoff culture. Throwing people away. But could that be a symptom of borderline personality disorder? Could that be an attempt to protect yourself, right? Obviously. But you're protecting yourself from what? What's driving you to do this, right? We're talking about studying behavior. You want to know the why, the motivation. What is driving this behavior in a person to cut a person off, right? They get signals, obviously, in their brain, their mind, that is telling them, okay, hold on, danger, or perceived danger, because not all danger is real. That's why they say real or imagine abandonment, which is a form of danger, right? Our body has a way of responding automatically through our autonomic system. So much of our behavior has a neurological, biological basis to it, right? But it's psychology is what helps us to understand it on a way that makes sense to most people. Think about that. Have you had experience like that recently? Or ever in your life? The guard goes up automatically, right? Then you react oftentimes without thinking about it, based on something that happened. And we talk about this, right? You see memes and you see posts, right, about how people get upset very quickly. For example, either in a conversation, right, or having a conversation with a person via text. The person doesn't respond. Like, what the fuck? I sent a text. Like, we're having this kind of heartfelt, emotionally driven conversation. The person don't respond. Let's say right away, right? There's a pause. Maybe they take 5 minutes to respond, right? It takes them who knows, right? What's happening on the other side? You don't know what's happening. Why it takes them. It doesn't even matter the why. It's just the fact that, 5 minutes and no response. 10 minutes. That's an hour, 2 hours. Damn, a whole fucking day. Oh, you're getting cut off, right? No questions asked. You're getting fucking cut off, right? Could that be a fear of abandonment and you cutting that person off because you are doing to them prematurely what you think that they're going to do to you? This is just human behavior. You don't want it done to you, so you're going to make sure you do it to them first. Because it's better to abandon someone than it is to be abandoned by someone. Even though both, you feel hurt. You feel hurt when you abandon someone, especially prematurely. You're like, fuck, I didn't cut this motherfucker off. I made the wrong fucking move, But you did it out of an irrational mind, right? Subconscious mind can be irrational sometimes, right? That's where our fears lie, right? Dreams lie in our subconscious mind. Fear is important, though. I don't want you to think it as black and white. It's not that black and white. Fear is important to have as a human being. But everything comes with advantages and disadvantages, right? And there is a good side and a bad side to fear. And sometimes it is irrational fear, right? It's not justified fear. It's fear that has been created through trauma, through bad experiences that you've had prior. Could have stemmed from the first 5 years, and it could have came from adolescent and young adult, right? These efforts to avoid abandonment is a coping mechanism, right? And so in therapy, what therapists try to do is to teach, to relearn people healthy coping mechanisms, so that first of all they identify what's happening and they learn new coping mechanisms to stop yourself. It's easier said than done, though. It's a practice, right, that can be perfected over time so that you're not responding impulsively, which is another symptom criteria of BPD. Number 4. Now, I was just on number 1, right? This is number 4, impulsivity, in at least 2 areas that are self-damaging, self-sabotaging. These impulsive behaviors can be anything, but they just give examples here: spending, sex, substance abuse, right? But this impulsivity it's just like a learned response. It's a type of conditioning that a person has kind of learned, right? It's a type of learned behavior through conditioning. And it's to kind of help balance that imbalance, right? That's your way of balancing the chemical imbalance that you feel, right? Within yourself. Makes you feel better. Cut a person off. Block a person on social media. Impulsivity. Not to say every time a person blocks someone, is done from a bad impulsive response, because it can be a good impulse, right? Not all impulses are bad. It's not that black or white, but it's to draw attention to things that are happening here, right? Substance abuse. These are coping mechanisms, poor coping mechanisms, right? Now let's continue, because I know I can stay in one place for a very long time. Let's go to the next. 2, a pattern of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships, characterized by alternating between extremes of idealization and devaluation, right? Makes sense though. For a person who who already has a template of instability, whether it stems from early childhood, first 5 years, or somewhere along the line in their development, adolescent, young adult, the instability came from somewhere, right? So it continues because this is what they're used to. They're only recreating something that is very familiar to them, right? That instability in relationships is something that is very familiar to them, and that's what makes them feel safe. It's kind of like dysfunctional, but it's functional. It's functional for them. Ginger juice is really good. If you're a person who has been succumbed to instability in relationships, right? Can you imagine what it's like when you perceive, oh, this person is right for you, right? It makes sense to how they can vacillate between idealization of a person, like, oh, I love you, you're the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because you're not used to security in relationships. And then at the face of a slight disappointment, right? At the face of a slight disappointment, something that they do that's could be a minor thing, right? Slight disappointment. Oh, you ain't shit. It kind of stems from lack of control, right? Or perceived lack of control. Because that's another characteristic. It's not stated here explicitly in terms of diagnostic criteria, but it's tied into these criteria. Lack of control, when you kind of understand the basis for these criteria. When we look at number 1, efforts to avoid, a lot of behavior is based on control, right? It's about control. You wanting to gain control over yourself or your environment. That's kind of my theory that I've made up, right? And understanding people, it's kind of just, it boils down to control, right? Controlling themselves. People want to gain a sense of control of themselves. They do it by controlling other people too, or their environment. And how do you control it? Avoiding people, impulsivity, things that you do. Also, number 3 says identity disturbance. So just having unstable sense of self, poor self-concept. And another one is emptiness. Another, that's number 7, chronic feelings of emptiness. But it makes sense though, right? Like having this apathy. There's just like isolating yourself from people, from social interactions, being alone, being empty. It make all this ties into each other, and when you think about it, being abandoned kind of ties into, you know, avoiding abandonment, right? You don't want to go down that path again. You fear abandonment so much that you kind of shoot yourself in the foot because you abandon other people. You fear it so much you don't want to be abandoned so much to the extent where you abandon other people prematurely out of fear that they're going to abandon you. And then having this instability in relationships, like you can't maintain fucking consistent relationships. So to protect yourself from having these very short-lived relationships, you just isolate. Like, fuck, just stay. I'm gonna stay to myself, because what's the point of even trying anymore, right? You can see how all of this would tie into these latter criteria that they have here. 5 being recurrent suicidal behavior. 6 is important. Affective instability due to a marked reactivity of mood. The irritability, anxiety. 8, intense anger, right? Difficulty controlling, like, that fucking makes sense. Why the hell would you be fucking angry, right? Because you're creating this reality. You are a participant, shall I say. Because we're all participants in our own reality. You're a participant in this reality that you create. You help co-create. It makes sense. Why the fuck you so goddamn mad? Now, the self-mutilation. I've read a lot up on this. I've had experience and exposure to people who are cutters. You get to the point where you feel numb. Like the apathy kind of ties into this numbness. You feel numb. And it's like numbness is a coping mechanism. When you see people who are emotionally blunted, are numb to not only other people's feelings and emotions, but more importantly to their own. They don't feel anything. It's a coping mechanism. It's an adaptive coping mechanism. Right? Is it healthy? Not necessarily, but it's functional. Right? It's how their body has responded to these repeated exposure to trauma in their life. So it makes sense for a person to be emotionally blunted, to not be able to feel. When you look at people who suffer from PTSD, that's also a symptom of PTSD, the numbness, right? Which also kind of ties into like differential diagnosis, and especially as a person who diagnoses, who assigns diagnoses to people or whatever, right? That's important because there's you see a lot of overlap. But some of these are just clear as day, right? Some of these are clear, like, yeah, you could tell that motherfucker got that shit. Excuse my colloquialism. But, it makes sense, like the numbing, right? Because it's just, just how your body responds. Anyone's body will respond in that way, and that's where treatment comes in, right? That's why treatment is important, because it's like, okay, your body has learned to adapt to a certain type of environment, a situation, and that was and that was useful in that environment, but you're no longer there, right? It's like you're thinking about people who've been to war, right? It's important to have a degree of numbness, right? And bluntness of emotion. That's necessary for a certain type of environment, war. But you're not in that no more, right? For a victim of domestic violence, yes, it's important. That's how you learn to survive in that relationship, but that is no longer serving you going forward in new relationships, right? Yes, it's important to have that apathy and numbness being a child in foster care, right? Living in a lockdown facility with other children who are also equally as violent as your ass is. That's important, right? It's a protective mechanism. It's important, but at some point, right, you have to learn a new way of existing, new way of being in the world that is going to be conducive to a healthier environment in which you live in, or going to be living in, unless you just want to hold on to this way of being and live this way forever. You can't live this way forever, though. At some point, shit get played out. You know? Shit get fucking played out. You're like, all right, I gotta change. You know? This shit is played out. It makes sense. These symptoms, manifested themselves as a result of certain experiences that a person has had. But it's just like, it gets played out. It gets exhausting. Right? And that's no way of being. So I wanted to just come to you guys to do this kind of introductory video on borderline personality disorder. And feel free to share your comments. I just prefer people to leave comments that are more like beneficial, right? Like useful. To get on a person's post, and I said this already and I'm going to end this video, but I have to like close with saying this. To get on a person's video and to just drop a comment, like, I'm not looking for anyone's approval or for anyone to agree or disagree. I do welcome for people to add to the discussion, right? And just because you have a difference of opinion doesn't mean you're taking away from the discussion. You're expanding the perspective as long as you're providing a perspective. But saying you disagree is not a perspective, right? I feel like it's more of a trigger than a perspective. It's just you saying you disagree. But feel free to share your thoughts on this, because I can relate. Like I said, I'm honest enough to admit that, yeah, I can relate to this whole cutoff culture thing. And, we kind of rationalize it, People with higher IQs, that's our go-to defense mechanism. Rationalization. I admit that shit. I can rationalize the hell out of some shit. I think lawyers are good at that. I think I've pretty mastered that shit. Where we'll be like, yeah, you gotta protect your energy. Yes, we do have to protect our energy. You gotta protect our energy field, and I'm very protective of my space. And that's a whole nother topic, because I was thinking about that. I was watching this video. I have to end this. I know I'd be going off on so many different tangents, but it's all connected. It's all connected, right? But I was just thinking about that, as I was watching this video of a woman who says she's gonna come off of Instagram, right? Now, she considers herself to be like this priestess who has certain rank in the spiritual realm and all this, right? And I immerse myself like in this whole world. It's fascinating to me to hear people talk about different types of things other than fucking reality TV show drama, right? And I'm listening to the video and I'm thinking to myself, like, so many different ways to look at a thing, right? And I welcome your perspective too, because my perspective, as I was watching her video and just hearing her talk, right, and like her stance, like seeing her, and she's even admitted that she has been diagnosed. And just because a person has been diagnosed with a mental disorder doesn't mean like, oh, it was a valid diagnosis or whatever it could be. But she was saying like, yeah, she has a history of like, being perceived a certain way according to, in the mental health field. well, she's a very smart girl, but she does have this experience, right? Her reality is such that she, kind of like isolates herself. She doesn't like have necessarily friends, so to speak, right? And she has a different way of looking at things in the world, right? As many of us do. And it made me think, like, could this like rationalization and these odd eccentric ways of looking at life, which could very much be valid, the odd like eccentricity of people's thoughts within a certain culture, right? Could be very valid, right? Not to undermine that, right? When we're talking about people who are spiritual beings and, into the chakras and talking about dimensions and timelines, and you get my drift, right? That type of language, people who use those type of language, right? That could be a valid reality and train of thought. But another way of looking at it is like, could that also be a coping mechanism and a sign of maybe disassociating from the current reality? So you create a whole new reality to make yourself feel comfortable in existing within this reality, right? That might be too much. That might be too much for y'all. But it made me think, in that way, especially being a psychologist. There's just so many different ways to look at a thing. It made me think, like, right? But feel free to share your comments below. Like I say, I'm honest enough to admit, like, yeah, I can relate to the whole cutoff culture. And I've made videos, like, I'm transparent about my experience. I made videos about surviving panic disorder. Not that I've been formally diagnosed with panic disorder, but like I said, reading the DSM, like, you come to, like, oh, that makes sense now, right? And so, like, I'm not going to go into detail about this, but you guys got to go back and watch my video about overcoming panic disorder and my experience as a child. Yo, I used to have fucking panic attacks, like, big time. It was a real deal. And I had it, like, onset in early childhood, but through, like, adolescent, through even college. The shit was crazy. I talk about that, in previous videos, like, intermittently, I talk about, depression and things like that. So no one is immune to manifesting these symptoms that are pretty much responses, typical normal responses to just living life. You know what I'm saying? We're not immune to it. It's just more important, I think, to just be aware of when it's manifesting, when it's presenting itself, right? I catch myself, and so, like I said, recently I thought about, like, damn, that's what motivated this video. I was like, damn, I thought about this shit. I told you guys how, like, damn. My cutoff game's so fucking strong, yo, but I'm like, I thought about it, and it's funny because I was just on his live video, and I had left like 2 hearts. I was like, oh, I feel bad. Part of me feel bad, but no, part of me don't feel bad, because I feel like I do gotta protect myself. It is a way of protecting oneself, and it, like they said, perceived or imagined. It don't really fucking matter, but it's not fucking. Or not perceived or imagined, but real or perceived or imagined, right? Real versus imagined / perceived. It's really not about that, but it is real in a sense where, like, a person is just not in alignment with you, right? And I recognize that about this person. we're just not in alignment. Like, and I like to align myself with people who are very spiritually rooted and grounded, and ain't always trying to chase the bag. And that's the issue that I end up, like I was talking about in my previous video when I was talking about spiritual gifts. I talked about this already in my video, spiritual gifts. Where I tend to attract people who are like very talented, highly successful, people who got the bag. You know what I'm saying? But the bag being fucking money, right? And alongside that, it's just sometimes they lose sense of who they are. So it'll be great if the universe, which I think I have my hands on it, right? But I don't know. Maybe there's just a compromise sometimes where you just can't get your cake and eat it too. Like, this is like the higher up you ascend economically, right? That the socioeconomic ladder is like the fucking less spiritually grounded you are. And I was gonna say that it would be great if the universe, can make it so that I can be in alignment with people who are, you got money, you're successful, but at the same time, like you're grounded. And it's not always about chasing the bag. And so that was the issue that I had with the guy. And I just had to come to a crossroads with him and let him know, like, listen, you cool and all, respect your talent and all, but it's just not going to, it's just not going to work. And so me doing that, it kind of made me think about people who do suffer from that fear of abandonment. And it's not to say that I haven't ever experienced that. Honestly, I think it's just a human experience. I think we all have. Not that I feel I fear abandonment in that situation. I don't know, because I feel like he's a good person, and his ass, like, usually men around me, I don't get abandoned by them. They like stick around longer than what I want them to. That is typically the issue with me. But I just, he's a good person, and like he acknowledged me when I shared my love towards him. Like I told him, I still like have respect, but I just, I know kind of people that I are fit for like being in my circle like that. That ain't it. But on that note, I'm going to end this video. Share your comments below. Share your experience too. Nobody wants to be abandoned and left alone, right? And people try to cover it up by saying, like there's this quote. I don't know who the fuck said it first, but it was like, I'm going to get me something to eat. But it was like, if a person walks out of your life, let them, or something like that, right? They kind of like make a person feel better, placate the situation. It's just like, yeah, that too, but at the same time, we gotta admit, like, that shit hurt, right? Like, you have your mind set on something, on a person, relationship, and you're just like, damn, this shit don't work out, right? Not that it doesn't work out, but it suddenly fucking comes to an end. You're like, god damn, shit fucked up, right? So it's just, I make this video and videos like these because just to draw awareness to the topic. It's important that, we keep it like in our periphery. On that note, I'm going to end. Y'all know I go on and on. I'm about to end this fucking video because I'm about to get me something to eat. But I love you guys. Share your comments below. This is all coming from love. Catch you guys later. Peace.